I believe that our pets are part of the family. I certainly know my two cats and guinea pig are. But while we all display photos of our human family members and head out to a professional photographer's studio to get memories we'll treasure forever, how many of us can say the same about our pets? So whether you've got a dog who never sits still, a cat who hides as soon as strangers appears, or just taking snaps on your phone, this conversation gives you everything you need to know about getting the professionals on board and creating amazing images of your pet that you will treasure for a lifetime.
Bonnie, Darlene, Kathy, welcome along to the podcast. I'm really excited to be talking to you all today. It's a bit of a novelty for us to have multiple guests on the podcast, but it's fantastic to have all of your different areas of expertise and interests and what is a really interesting, exciting, and I think going to be very relevant conversation to our audience. So welcome along.
Thank you.
I'd love to start off by thinking about the world of photography, and then we think of the world of pet photography, which is I guess a much smaller, I would imagine, but maybe that's not true. You can correct me there. Kind of niche or subset in the photography space. I'd love to know what kind of brought you into this world. Maybe Bonnie, if we start with you and photography in general.
I got into photography in high school, which was 20 years ago. I took a black and white film photography class and then got into my school yearbook and went from there. It was a hobby for a long time. And then I went into it professionally about 9 years ago. I don't shoot, I have shot dogs before, but my specialties are mostly in maternity, family, and children.
Cool. Children and pets, there's probably quite a lot of similarity there, I'd imagine. Darlene, you're our dog photography expert, so to speak, today. Yeah, what brought you into that world?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So I didn't start off as photographing everything out there. I actually rescued a challenging dog just over 11 years ago, and she inspired me to become a dog trainer. And through that, I had started my own business of dog training, dog walking, and she was a beautiful husky mix that I enjoyed photographing. And through that, I learned everything about photography, took courses. And so right away, my niche was photographing dogs. And that's where it all started. And so now I've been photographing dogs along with their families for 7 years.
I love that. I imagine everyone thinks that their dog is the most beautiful dog
Right.
ever, and that's kind of your job, is to capture that, isn't it? Because often we fall in love with their personalities as much as their look, and that's what we're looking for in a photo as well. And Kathy, I know you do kind of dogs and cats, but you're here to talk about cats primarily. That must be a pretty challenging goal that you set yourself there.
Yes, but it's a lot of fun, and I am truly a cat person. At one point, I did have 5 cats, so I self-avowed crazy cat lady. And that was part of getting into pet photography, was wanting to shoot my own cat, photograph, not shoot, photograph my own cats. And then eventually getting a dog so I could train the dog in the studio so I could test things out and work and learn to work with dogs. So.
Yeah, wonderful. That's yeah, I guess pet lovers first and foremost. And Bonnie, with your kind of professional photography background, why should we, I imagine this is something that you all get kind of questions asked about, or questions that you address, but why should people think about using a professional pet photographer, maybe, rather than, well, either we've all got cell phones in our pocket that are getting better, or a photographer who actually doesn't specialize in pets?
So to speak to the, professional versus our cell phones, yes, cell phone quality is getting better. It's never going to compare to the quality of a photo that you're going to get, not just from a professional camera, but mostly from the professional behind that camera who knows how to manipulate lighting and posing and what time of day and how to prompt, whatever, whoever they're shooting, and how to edit those photos, and on and on and on. So the quality aspect, yes, phones are great for what they are, but it's just never going to compare to a professional photographer. And then pets specifically, there are several genres in photography where I really think people should hone in on a specialist. And that's because that genre is so unique in the training that it takes and the knowledge and the practice. And pet photography is certainly one of those. You really have to have a knowledge, not necessarily like a veterinarian level knowledge, but you really do have to have a good working knowledge of the animals in general, scientifically, and how to work with them, and how to just the things that you need to do to be careful with them, and to do and not to do. And it's just incredibly important, I think, to have a specialist when you're working with your dogs or your cats or your horses. And they are so trained on that specific genre that the people who every now and then, like myself, will photograph a dog, usually my own. We can get away with it sometimes, but kind of like newborn photography, if you don't do it on a regular basis, you don't want someone taking photos of your pet unless that's what they're specializing in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. It's the person behind the camera, not the camera. I dabble a little bit in, or I have done in the past, and it's always, oh, that's a nice photo, and someone immediately goes, what lens did you use? And you're like, well, it doesn't really matter. It was, that's not the important thing. So I see you all chuckling there. So I know you'll get that many times. And I guess, Darlene, going back to the importance of knowing the animals, that must be where your training background comes in, being able to read how much, not you can push them, that's the wrong word, but how much you can get away with posing or what have you.
Yeah, extremely important. And having been a dog trainer first, that's always in my mind. First and foremost, my main goal in a photo session with a dog is to make sure the dog is safe, the environment safe, and all of that. Like, I keep dogs on leash throughout the entire time. I know a lot about dog body language. And to me, it's important that a pet photographer knows a lot about reading dogs' behavior, body language. They don't have to be a dog trainer. I mean, yes, I was, but they should have that knowledge to know when a dog might be stressed, when a dog might need a little bit more space, when a dog might need a break. And that comes with all animals too during a session. So safety is huge, and it's important for the photographer to be able to read into a lot of that.
Yeah, and you're only ever going to be able to get the best photo with a dog being, relaxed in their normal state, reflecting who they normally are, rather than, ears up or tail tucked because they're anxious about that situation.
Exactly, a lot of those signs, so true, where people, oh, the dog is smiling, and clearly the dog is stressed.
Oh yeah, those photos on social media people post of the baby hugging the dog that looks like it's about to bite them, but everyone thinks it looks
so cute. It gives me anxiety, right?
Oh yeah, you and me both, Darlene. And Kathy, I guess it's the same with cats as well, but maybe they're a bit more, maybe camera shy might be the way of putting things.
Yes, they're more easily stressed, they're more easily anxious, and calming them down or getting them comfortable is harder. And that's the biggest challenge with cats. I love, 3-month-old kittens that are well socialized. They're active, they're playful, they're really easy to get in front of a camera.
Yeah. But the older cranky senior, a bit more tricky.
Yes. And then it's just, how can I keep the animal, how can I keep this cat comfortable and hopefully willing to work with me, or at least tolerant? Those are my big goals with the anxious and timid cats. Keep them comfortable and hopefully in front of the camera.
Yeah, and so what does a cat photo session look like, Kathy? We're always talking in the studio? Do you go outside? I mean, cats on harnesses and leads is becoming more of a familiar sight. What does that look like?
I have never done a cat outdoors. They've all been in studio. I have done a few in homes, but I prefer to use my studio. I have more control over my space, my lights, all my gear is here. So if I need to go and, let's try something else, let me go grab this. I've got it right there. I don't have to lug it to somebody's home. I have never done outdoor sessions. If the opportunity comes up with a cat that's comfortable outside on harness and leash, I'll certainly try it.
There's a real movement I see more and more, and I'm certainly one of my nurses, she has her cat out on a lead and harness a lot, so I'm sure you'll come across that very soon, Kathy. How long do you find that a normal session lasts for your cats?
I don't put a time limit on them, a hard time limit. I think my last one was probably an hour and a half, and a lot of that time was just spent comforting Kitty. She was not happy.
Yeah, we
got pictures, but she was not happy about it.
Yeah, but you got there in the end with patience and working with them rather than against them.
Patience, tuna puree.
Wonderful. And Darlene, with our dogs, I guess you're maybe more outside, or are you in the studio, or 50-50? What does a session look like? I guess it depends on what the owner's looking for as well.
Right. So I'm kind of completely opposite of what Kathy does. I am a natural light chaser. For me, it's all about light before location. So my sessions will take place if it's on the beach before sunrise. And we play with that beautiful morning light, golden hour. Or for those who do not like to wake up in the dark before the crack of dawn, I start 2 hours before sunset. So outdoors. Yep. For me, love that natural light. And when it comes to length of a session, kind of like Kathy, no time limit. So I find that puppies and senior dogs can be completely done in 30 to 40 minutes. Like they're over it and ready to move on. Yeah, so I let the dogs decide how long the session is going to last and pay attention to that.
Wonderful. So looking at that golden hour, the sunrise, sunset, the beautiful light, and getting out there and about. Wonderful. And how can people go about preparing their dog for a photo session? What do they need to be thinking about? Is it best that they're kind of tired so that they're staying still, or what do they need to think about?
A little tired is good. It's a challenge in the morning if we do the sunrise stuff. I do try to push for early mornings because there are less distractions in the world at that hour. So for dogs that might be a little reactive or just find, a little bit more uncomfortable around distractions, I try to get the early morning. And that's harder to prepare. A lot of times the dogs are tired anyways if they're not used to getting up early. So yeah, I try to tell people to get to a session about 10, 15 minutes early to have the dog sniff around, check things out, to get a little more comfortable, especially if it's a new environment. And then one of the biggest preparation though for dogs is like the doodle dogs or the dogs with the fur, to make sure they are groomed before a photo session so that we can see those beautiful eyes, the catch lights, and that sparkle in the eyes. So that's a big importance too.
No, I imagine that is really important. And grooming them and getting any eye goobers out from the inside of their eyes. And but I guess if they're normally a pretty dirty dog, and that might be part of their character as well, but you want to see their true features. And Kathy, what about for our cats? Because I imagine if they're coming into your studio, is there anything people need to do to, have a trial run to get them used to the carrier, or is it just about time and letting them settle?
Some of both. If a cat is not used to traveling in a car, absolutely take them around in a car just for a few minutes so that they figure out that this is not actually torture. I do, as part of my process, I do have a meet and greet session. So Kitty gets a chance to come to the studio, check it out, see if there's any good hiding places. There's none that I can't get to. And so that hopefully when they come back, they're a little bit more comfortable and less traumatized, less likely to be anxious and stressed. My other big advice is for the people is relax. If you're wound up, if you're anxious, if you're nervous about how your cat's going to behave or your dog, they're going to pick up on it and they're going to be anxious and nervous. So absolutely keep it relaxed and easy and they'll have a better time.
Absolutely. We see that. I see that in the consult room as well. And sometimes they're so wound up in there with their owner there. And we actually take them out into the prep room, have the nurses hold, and the pet, they don't sense that nervous energy and they actually just relax, and they're so much better there, where you'd think maybe if they were taken away, they'd be even more uptight, but they feed off our own energy, don't they?
Yep.
And are there any cats, I'm thinking, if they're aggressive, they're really shy, they're scared, if they're going to freeze, people are really worried about these things maybe and think that their cat wouldn't be a good fit for a photography session. Is that a case, or is it a case of all cats are welcome and we will get to, well, I mean, as much as you can guarantee anything, we will get a good photo regardless of that, and because we work with them?
Yes, I've not failed on cat photography yet. I have done a couple where I did a session in the studio and it just didn't work. So we went home to their house where Kitty was a little bit more comfortable. Interestingly enough, Kitty still had an attitude. She's like, "I'm tired of your bull." But yes, I do try I have not had an aggressive kitty yet. I've gotten several that just, freeze and they're tight and paws here and tucked nice and tight on the surface. If they're really anxious, I can back up across the studio and use a longer lens. If mom and dad can keep them in place where my lights are. So
yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I guess maybe the super aggressive ones are too much to get into a cage in the first place, and they're, you know, if they're wild, and yeah, they're maybe
right.
self-selecting.
I have had some very spicy foster kittens.
Adds a little bit of drama to your day as well.
Yes.
And Darlene, I imagine if you're outside and you may be keeping distance, then aggressive dogs or people or dogs that are scared of other people, you know, anything goes as well. And with your training background, that's really going to help too.
Yeah, if we go even niche within a niche, I do a lot of work with reactive dogs, having had a reactive dog for 11 years who didn't get along with other dogs and was a little iffy with people. So that's important to me too. I'm not there to be the dog's best friend and to let people know that's not as important as giving the dog space and keeping the dog safe. I definitely have my longer lenses that I use to give my distance away from the dogs. Another thing I recommend too with locations, we can do a photo session right in someone's backyard. And that's perfect. The dogs are most comfortable at home in their own yard. They can run, they can be off leash, and we don't have the other distractions too. So that is just as easy to do.
Nice. So again, it doesn't matter what your dog is, what their background is, we can get that image. And then when it comes to, you know, the session's kind of done and dusted, if you like, what's the next step? Because I imagine there's some kind of review, or people are picking their favorites. What does that look like for our dog parents out there?
Yeah, so I love looking over the images with the family, with the clients. And so usually within a week afterwards, we either get together in person with a computer or in my studio. I do have a studio where I don't do sessions, but I get together with clients and we'll look at the images big on the TV screen, or we'll catch up via Zoom. I love seeing the expressions that people have when they see the pictures of their dog and also of themselves with their dogs, because those are the images that they cannot take with their cell phones, is the pictures of that connection that they have with their dogs. And also I specialize in artwork for dogs, and it's not just handing over digital files. I like to create framed portraits for the home. I like to create what I call storybooks that tells the story of the session and all that. So that's important to me. Those are the things, the tangible memories that we need that last forever.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess if we're going to the effort in inverted commas of getting a professional in to take the best photos possible, then actually having a physical copy is just so important, because the magic of that print outweighs that digital file and that image on the your cell phone screen just inordinately. And I imagine that's the similar process that you work with, Kathy, as well.
Yes, I do. I have them come back into the studio. We watch a short video of all the final images and then go through one by one so they can eliminate any that don't speak to them. And then when we're talking about what they want to order, I do offer digital files, but my primary goal is to get artwork in their hands and hopefully on their walls. But yeah, then when we're talking about what they're going to order, they know that they're looking at images they know they already love.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. And yeah, I can just imagine the framed photo on the mantelpiece. Just, we think of our pets as family. Certainly I do, and I imagine everyone listening to and watching this does. And yeah, we have photos of our human family members up on the wall and on the countertop. So why not our pets as well? Bonnie, when it comes to actually finding a photographer, we've obviously got two wonderful photographers here, Kathy and Darlene, but you don't travel across the world everywhere, although maybe you'll be open for a flight if someone wants to hit you up. But how can people go about finding a great pet photographer?
I think the first and foremost thing to look for is that the photographer has a website, and I'm sure somebody will push back on me about this, but I don't think that a photographer who's taking themselves seriously as a professional, they should have a website. And so make sure that they have a website. Once you get on that website, look for consistency in their portfolio, because with the digital age, pretty much anyone can take 1,000 photos and wind up with one or two good ones. But we don't want those one or two good ones, right? We want to make sure that we're going to get a consistent work from these people. So look through their entire portfolio and make sure that it's measuring up to the type of photos that you want, that their style matches yours, That kind of, we were talking about, like if they're studio or outdoors, make sure that what they're doing is matching what you're wanting. Obviously, like we said, look for a specialist if that's important to you. Some people are a little, they've got really easygoing dogs. Maybe that's not as important, but I really think that people in the pet photography world should be looking for a specialist. Read the reviews that they have, make sure they have reviews, because that means they've actually been around long enough. And if there's bad ones, read them all and make sure that the bad reviews are even relevant to what you're wanting, or they even make sense at all. Because a lot of us get, weird reviews that people who have never even seen us before. So make sure you read those. And then make sure that you're getting a professional response from them. So if you're reaching out, make sure that they are professional in their response. They are sending you information about what to expect, the timeline that you should be looking at, probably a contract they're going to send you. Obviously, you need to know at least a general price range that you're going to be spending, how to prepare for the session. All these things should be given to you by the photographer. That kind of signals that they're a true professional and they're going to take you seriously, take themselves seriously, and you're going to get a good outcome out of it. And then also with pet photography, be willing to travel maybe a little bit, because like you were saying at the beginning, this is a niche in photography and there aren't a whole lot of pet photographers out there yet. So be willing to spread your net a little bit wider. You might have to go a little farther than you would certainly for maybe a family session or something to find the perfect pet photographer for you.
Yeah, but that little bit of effort is going to be well worth it. Darlene, have you got any other kind of questions that people commonly ask you, or concerns that they might have that we haven't really spoken about yet?
No, but one thing I want to mention that Bonnie just mentioned is, when looking for a pet photographer, look at their portfolio, look at their images, because one situation I had someone contact me and they were looking for pictures of their dog with a white background in a studio. And I thought to myself, I do not have one studio image on my entire website. And I am happy to refer out to someone else when that happens. But if you're looking for a pet photographer, really kind of dive into their website, see what they're all about, see what their story is too. And if you can kind of connect to who they are. I know my story on my website kind of talks about my heart dog and going through grief and loss and how she inspired me to run my business. And I find a lot of people reaching out about that and connecting in that way, having a similar situation. And one thing we always want to do is get photos sooner rather than later. So if it pops in your mind ever the thought of, oh, maybe I want to someday do photos with my dog or pet, cat as they get older, don't think that you want to do it down the road. Pick up the phone, do it that day, because we never know. Our pets clearly aren't here with us long enough, and there's never enough time. So
yeah, we never know what's on that horizon, do we? And with our pets aging, even if it's nothing serious, with our pets aging, relatively quickly, that's 3 years can make a big difference in the kind of images that potentially you'd be able to get.
It's so true.
And Kathy, any other questions or concerns that people often have that you have to address that you'd like to talk about today?
No, I would ask when you're looking for a photographer, make sure that they are insured. If something goes wrong, you want all parties covered.
Yeah, that's a wonderful tip. Absolutely. And I guess it goes back to being a professional in your space, having that insurance. Yeah, the website absolutely is a must. It's such a low barrier to entry. And if someone hasn't even gone, that far, then you question how serious they are. So everyone, this has been a wonderful conversation. There's been a lot for people to get their heads around. And I think anyone thinking about having a professional portrait session done with their pets will be so much better informed and better prepared as a result of every kind of all of your expertise you've shared with us. I'd love to know where people can go to find out more about you. So Kathy, where would you like to send people if they'd like to learn more about kind of photography and cats and where you're based and everything like that?
I am in Oklahoma City, and my website is www.okkatphoto.com. That is K for Kathy, not C for cats. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at OKCatPhoto.
Wonderful. And Darlene, what about you?
Yeah, so Darlene Woodward, and I'm located just north of Boston, and my service areas are Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. And Pant the Town Photography, a play on words, not paint the town, it's Pant the Town. I am on Instagram, and you can also find me on Facebook. And I'm also part of a group called One Last Network, and we help pet parents, with resources that are getting close to the end of life phase with their animals. So we're a group of pet photographers educating and finding resources for people who are entering that phase in their pet parenting.
A challenging phase, but that's wonderful work. And Bonnie, what about where people can go? Because I think you've got the resource that where people can look and find a photographer in their local area.
Yeah, so I know Darlene and Kathy through the photography directory I created called Happily Ever Photo. It's based in the US, so it's for US based photographers of any portrait genre, and you can search by location, by specialty, by experience, by editing style, and multiple other things. But it's happilyeverphoto.com. Pretty simple.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for your time. It's been wonderful to connect. All of those links and social handles and everything will be in the show notes, so everyone can click through and dive deeper into your wonderful portfolios, or find a more local photographer if they're not in your part of the States. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you, Alex.
And if you are worried your pet is stressed and anxious, you can find out strategies to help them thrive instead in this video linked on screen. So tap on that video. I'll see you there. But until the next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is Our Pets Health, because they're family.